This is the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show, a weekly broadcast that breaks down each Eagles game better than anyone else. The Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show is broadcasting live from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken and is heard on both 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and is brought to you by the Great American Pub, Independence Blue Cross, Penn Community Bank, Fogo de Show, and Hand and Stone Spa. We now go live to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
All righty, everybody. Welcome to the Great American Pub here in Conshohocken on a Monday night, which means it must be time for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. I am Paul Jolovitz, along with Paul Domowitch. We're here to recap yesterday's unfortunate loss. The Commanders look ahead and talk all things football with Domo and our special guest. He is a very good friend of mine. Oh, wait a second. Let me one thing before we introduce Sean Landeta. I never wore jerseys before. I'm wearing a Bill Berge jersey tonight in honor of Mr. Berge, who is unfortunately very near death tonight. No other way to say that. He's fighting for his life. Hopefully there can be a miracle. I got this jersey for Christmas. My wife gave it to me early for obvious reasons. I'm wearing it tonight, so if everybody could say a prayer for 66 Bill Berge, really appreciate it, including our guest who knows Bill Berge very well. He punted for 22 years in the NFL, 3 in the USFL. He's won 2 Super Bowl rings, played for the Eagles and Giants, a couple other teams. He's a great guy. We love to have him. Mr. Sean Landeta, how are you, buddy?
Good, Paul. Great to see you, and great to see you, Paul, also. A little somber thought. I mean, Bill Berge, when I came here to play for the Eagles, one of the great things when you're a kid growing up, you follow football, and if you're lucky enough to make it, you end up meeting guys and sometimes playing with guys that you grew up watching. And when I got to meet Bill Berge, and I just remember just what a giant of a player he was.
He was an eagle of a player.
An eagle of a player, okay. And but he was just so friendly to me,
yep.
And so gregarious, and just a terrific player, and he lived and died. He loved the Eagles so much, and certainly wish him and his family the best at this time.
We do too. I did the post-game show with Bubba for many years. He's as good a human being as there is. Sean, you know this. I haven't made friends with too many athletes in my life. You're one of them. Bill's one of them. And there's a couple others, Jamie Moyer. You got to be special people. And you ever make friends with athletes, Tomo, after you left? You covered athletes. You don't want to be too close. Anybody ever become a social friend of yours?
No. I mean, I've cordial with a lot of them. I can't say, including Sean. I can't say that, that I'm only 3 years removed from being a sports writer, so, you try to keep your distance to a certain degree.
All right, well, Sean's kept his distance for a few years, but still down with the teams, was down at the game yesterday. We'll talk to him about it. Damo, first you. Commanders beat the Eagles and the 10-game winning streak. We'll talk all about the number 1 seed, the playoffs, chances by ESPN analysis, 2% of getting the number 1 seed. Make a long story short, Eagles have to win 2, Lions have to lose 2, and Minnesota has to lose on Sunday to the New Orleans Saints, which isn't going to happen. Not to the New Orleans Saints. Whoever they play, anyway, it's not going to happen. What happened yesterday, Don? Most simple question.
Well, I mean, Jalen Hurts' injury kind of triggered most of it. They had some defensive problems after losing, Josh Sweat went out.
Yep.
And didn't play a big chunk of the game, and that kind of exposed a lack of depth at edge rusher, which is something they're going to have to be concerned with going forward. And then C.J. Gardner-Johnson getting thrown out. Another lack of depth at safety. I mean, that cost them too. So the defense was not as sharp as it's been all year against Washington. They tried to blitz Jaden Daniels, and he butchered them. But, I mean, what we learned most and what I hope people got out of it was that Jalen Hurts is much, much more than a game manager.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts needs to be there. Listen, Kenny Pickett, you can talk about in a million different ways. He was okay.
Yeah.
Giants, I mean, the Commanders completely changed the way they play defense, stick in the box. Saquon, who had 1 million yards in the first quarter, had 30, 40 the rest of the way. Kenny Pickett was fine. There were drops, fundamental mistakes, sloppiness, as Nick says, penalties. Sean, you were in this league forever. We'll talk about being at the game in a second, but did you ever have a teammate do something stupid, get kicked out or whatever, or cost your team? And how do you feel when that happens? Nothing you can do about it. When a guy gets kicked out, then the depth kicks in. Do people just have to grow up and be mature in a game where things happen that you get emotional about?
Well, yeah, I mean, even the guy that will get kicked out of the game, he's very aware of that, but and each situation is different. At some point, if you just feel you're totally being taken advantage of or someone goes over the line, you're going to try your best not to retaliate, but sometimes you just feel like you have to. And again, you should try your best not to, because they always say the second guy gets caught.
Yep.
And as you said, you never want to lose a player because of that. And it doesn't happen very often, but most of the time you're angry because you lost the player because he's so good and helps you, more than angry at him because you understand at that split second he did what he felt he had to do. But we all know there's dozens and dozens of things that go into winning and losing a game, and you'll hear people say, well, one play didn't decide this game. And I've always disagreed with that. I mean, it's unfortunate. Devontae Adams is a great receiver, but if he catches that ball,
game's over.
The game's over.
Yep.
No matter what happened before that. Now, before that, if other things happened, it wouldn't have mattered. But right there at that moment, and you didn't win. And the whole narrative would be different. Everybody would be talking about Kenny Pickett came in and did a great job backing up. He threw a clutch pass to Adams to close the game out. To Smith, I'm sorry. And earlier in the season against Atlanta, if another very easy pass is caught, that game is won.
Yep.
That play right there. So lots of plays go into a game, but unfortunately there is truth to sometimes that one play is why you won or lost.
It's interesting, Dom, because the narrative does change completely. He's right.
Yeah. If you're looking for a turning point in yesterday's game, it's the end of the third quarter, 4th and 11. Washington's in a 4th and 11 situation. Jaden Daniels runs for 30 yards and a first down. 2 missed tackles on that play. They were up. Eagles were up 13 points. Then it looked like a comfortable lead. Looked like they were. A game was in the bag. You give up a 4th and 11. That shouldn't happen. It did, and that's kind of was when things started to tumble a little bit.
Well, 5 touchdown passes for Jaden Daniels, and we can talk about all kinds of other things, but I want to get both your opinions on this. At the start of the game, obviously, Eagles up 7-0. Jalen Hurts on a 2nd and 20, runs for 13, 14 yards, gets up. Nobody noticed that they was watching. Obviously, the ref did, and we all noticed when they saw the replay, but his eyes looked like they rolled in the back of his head. Sean, when you played, this didn't exist. The independent neurologist who sits there and says, this guy's coming out of the game. It's not the coach it's up to. You take it out of the shareholders and into an independent guy. Jalen put his helmet back on, and somebody said, dude, you're not going back in this game. That's a good thing, isn't it?
It is a good thing. Most of my years were in the 80s and 90s. I did play into the 2000s.
When concussions weren't recognized.
But 95% of the time today that a guy's taken out, back then, they never would have come out of the game.
They got their bell rung, right?
And I was sitting right in front of the tent behind the Eagle bench. And the way he jogged off, he came in, he came out. He had his helmet on. He was walking on the field. And the Eagles trainer, Tom, literally had to take his helmet from him and say, no, you can't go back in. He was ready to go. If this would have been 25, 30 years ago, he'd have went back in, no problem. But in the end, this is better for the player.
Here's the thing. On Twitter today, people have been brutalizing Sean Smith, the referee from the game yesterday, for throwing CJ out, basically on what he said rather than what he did. Sean Smith's also the guy who looked into Jalen Hurts' eyes when he got up off the ground and realized he wasn't right. I mean, Jalen was. I mean, you could see there was something wrong.
He was
there.
in Cincinnati.
He sent Jalen to the sidelines
Yep.
and made sure he got checked, and that ultimately resulted in him being diagnosed with a concussion. That doesn't happen. He stays in the game, and we could be talking about an Eagles quarterback that got seriously hurt and the repercussions going forward, not only with his health, but with the Eagles' playoff chances this year.
Sean, you must remember, I mean, players that you played with or opponents. You're a compassionate guy. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. Where you said, this guy should not be in this game right now. You must have seen it 1,000 times, right?
Well, I have, but there was one that really scared me. I was playing for the Rams, 1995. We're at the Jets late in the year. And Chris Miller's our quarterback, a guy who had a number of concussions. And he gets hit, he gets brought to the sideline, and he's sitting on the bench, leaning back with his eyes closed. And I'm sitting about 3 feet away, and I turn my head, and he slumps over on his side on the bench, like doesn't even brace himself. His arms are hanging, his eyes are closed. And I get up yelling for the trainers. They come over, they prop him up. I mean, that was scary, you know, and it turned out that even to this day he has terrible problems.
Yeah.
He told me there were times, you know, today a lot of young people don't remember what a payphone is.
Yeah.
But back then, he said there were times driving home from practice, he'd have to stop at a payphone, before cell phones basically, and ask his wife for directions.
Well, here's the thing. Back then, in the 80s and 90s, players, the medical, everybody did not realize that the long-term repercussions of concussions, of brain trauma. So I mean, a guy doesn't know where he is. Then it's almost viewed as humorous back then.
Yeah, got his bell wrong.
Yeah, it's like come on, get out of it. We need you.
Right.
Yep.
That's obviously, you know, since then they've learned a lot. They've learned what can happen. You know, so it's you know, fortunately, things are different.
And thank God they'll be different in the future. And then Jalen gets hurt, and Eagles go up 14-0 right after that. Kenny Pickett comes in. Let's be honest, I'm not a big Kenny Pickett fan. He was okay yesterday. Didn't really stretch the field. Had some people drop balls. Obviously, Devontae, as Sean said, dropped that one ball. Dama, how did Kenny Pickett play yesterday? And going forward, if Jalen doesn't play Sunday or in the playoffs, do you start Tanner McKee Sunday? You say we got to get this kid some reps. What's your view on the whole thing?
I think he's going to get a lot of reps this week, and I think that will make him a lot better if he has to play on Sunday. Yeah, he was okay. I mean, that's about the best you could say. He threw the pick, which was costly. You know, he faced a lot of man, and didn't seem to be able to take advantage of it a lot of times. But he made some good throws. I mean, he wasn't a liability like a lot of backups. I mean, this is a guy that came into the season with 24 starts as a NFL player. So, yeah, I think he'll be a lot better this week because we don't know, but I think there's a good chance Jalen doesn't play this week.
I think there's a good chance he doesn't play. Maybe they sit him. Eagle players traditionally with concussions sit a week. Obviously, every concussion is different. Who knows? Kenny Pickett comes in and go back and forth. But, Sean, we got a quick break, but I want to get your opinion on this first. You played many years in this league. The Commanders completely changed their defensive scheme for Kenny Pickett than it was for Jalen Hurts. One thing Eagle fans saw that they had to see yesterday is we need Jalen Hurts in there because we see how teams play us when he's not. Saquon was virtually useless yesterday. Eagles got to be very wary of that going forward, right?
Well, he did gain 50 yards in the second half.
But 22 carries.
Oh, I understand, but certainly it's different. Any team that lost their starting quarterback that's of the caliber of Jalen Hurts, and anyone who thinks he's not outstanding doesn't know football.
Right.
You know, as Paul said earlier, some people think he's a game manager. You know, that's a great insult for saying the guy can't play, and that's foolish.
Yeah.
He's terrific. But there's no question, if Pickett gets all the reps this week, he hasn't played in a long time. And once again, if he catches that ball, Smith, we're talking about his day totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. So we'll see what happens this week.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back. Sean Landeta is our guest. Paul Domowitch with me, Paul Jolovitz, the Great American Public Hot Shotgun. Got a lot of great people here. Come on down and say hi to Sean. This is the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff right here on 1490 WCB and 107.3 FM, and we're back after this. Stay with us.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
At Independence Blue Cross, we take care of the people who take care of you. Everyday heroes like firefighters, police officers, teachers, farmers, and healthcare workers. Doctors and hospitals across the region have IBX, and they know what it means to have reliable access to care. So whether you're saving lives or just trying to live a healthier life, count on IBX, the region's #1 health insurer for 85 years. Learn more at IBX.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. And here's the pitch. BCWSA water and sewer customers, you have a new and improved option to pay your bill that's convenient, reliable, and secure. Powered by Invoice Cloud, you can pay your bill 24/7 online, pay by text or phone, or sign up for AutoPay to avoid fees for late or missed payments. Visit bcwsa.net to sign up or for more info. That's bcwsa.net. BCWSA, prove it.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
Wilkes-Barre's are tremendous.
All righty, everybody, back here at the Great American Pub in Conshohocken, the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Don't forget, you can watch this show live at WBCBSports.com and YouTube Live by searching WBCB Sports. We're here with Sean Landeta and Paul Domowitch, my co-host. Sean, somebody came up to me, one of the bartenders, Brad, before the show. Knew you played a long time, obviously with the Stars, but 5 teams in the NFL. Said, is Sean Landeta a Giant or an Eagle? And I pointed out, well, he played for 3 other teams, but I said, Sean's an Eagle when he needs to be an Eagle, and a Giant when he needs to be a Giant. Sean's a chameleon. Is that a fair statement?
I'm one of all the teams I played for. I mean, I played the longest with the Giants, and we won a couple Super Bowls there. So, you know, some people will say, well, we think of you more like that, and that's fine. But I played 6 years for the Rams. I played 5 here. So I consider myself, you know, with everybody, not just really one.
And he is one of, I don't know the exact number of players in history that have been in on 2 all-decade teams, but you were a member of the all-decade team in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I mean,
we're
talking a very, I mean,
maybe one day.
We've talked many times about Sean. Ray Guy got in a few years ago.
Yeah.
People thought he's got to be the first guy. Listen, if a player's on the field, if you're a part of a game and you're the best at that, you should be immortalized, whether people think punters are useless or not. I mean, and you were one of the greats of all time, without question. Domo, has Sean's name ever? I mean, you were 125 finalists.
Yeah.
Again,
and I mean, I don't think you've been a semifinalist.
Not yet.
You know, I pushed for it. You know, it's hard with special teams guys. I mean, that's basically the biggest problem. But he deserves. You know, of all the punters that aren't in the Hall of Fame, he's right at the top of my list.
I appreciate it.
Yep, special teams yesterday were a big part of the game. Eagles did not play well on special teams. The Commanders with the kick returns. But guys, the turnovers, 5 turnovers to 1. We saw the game with Jared Goff at Houston earlier this year where through all those interceptions, Lions come back and win. Yesterday, Eagles +4 in the turnover battle, lose. The Commanders had some long drives. But the possessions, the time of possession, all that figured in. Damo, how do you turn the ball over 5 times, have the #1 defense in the league, and lose?
Doesn't happen very often. I mean,
and you scored 33 points.
You had mentioned Goff and the Lions. Houston is the only other team where that's happened this year. I believe there's only been 4 cases of it over the last 5 years of a team that had 5 takeaways and lost the game. I mean, they didn't finish. They were awful on third down yesterday, which that really hurt them. I mean, because they've been a good third down team with Jalen and Barkley. Yesterday they were 1 for 9 in the second half. They weren't very good in the red zone, only 2 for 4. Missed opportunities there. So that's, you had mentioned the kickoff coverage was awful. It set up Washington. I think Washington's average drive start yesterday was close to the 40-yard line. That can't be. But it's because their kickoffs were awful. Their coverage and the kickoffs by Braden Mann, I'm not sure what they were trying to accomplish on it.
I was saying that to myself. I mean, Braden has a nice leg.
But the wind was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Not too bad. I don't think it was that bad.
Okay.
Not in the stands it was. The first one he totally mishit, but the others were short. And I said to myself, they have to be doing that on purpose. But, geez, they sure are giving up a lot of yardage.
Yeah.
Because Jake Elliott made a 50-yard field goal, missed a 57-yard that was short. Taking things going forward, again, they lost the game. Nothing you can do about that. But Jake Elliott hadn't made a 50-yarder. Of course, if that was 49, like Sean said, the narrative wouldn't be 50, but it was. Your thoughts on Jake Elliott yesterday, Domo?
If you were asking me for, one bright spot out of this game, it would be him making a 50-yarder. Because I think it's going to give him some confidence.
Yeah.
He'll tell you that he's been fine, but still, he was 0 for 6 on 50-plus yarders. He came up a little short, I think about 3 yards short on that 56-yarder, which was the exact distance of the run by Barkley. Was a bad block by Calcaterra on the play before that. Got Barkley knocked back for a 3-yard loss, which was the difference. But I think this is going to help Jake Elliott going forward, and I think they need him for the playoffs, so I think it's important that his mind be where it needs to be.
Sean, you did place kick, but you were a punter in the NFL. You were a great punter, but I'm sure you had times like every golfer, like every human does, where you get the yips or things aren't going right. What's it like when you hit 3 or 4 the wrong way and then you get a hold of one and then show yourself that you still can, physically and psychologically both?
Well, certainly you always have to prove it to yourself first. During the week in practice, you dozens and dozens, maybe several hundred reps. So right there you can see it. And tough thing for punters and kickers is you only have a handful in the game. Before the game and halftime you can punt great, but you've got to hit those balls in the game well. And most of the time you do, but when you're out of sync, you just try to go through a mental checklist. Was my drop good? Am I watching the ball? And at some point you have to do it. And like you said before, he was 0 for 6 before that. Yeah. So you could say I'm fine, but in the meantime, until you do it, to yourself you're not going to prove it. Not only was that a big kick because he made a 50-yarder, it put him in the lead, put him ahead.
All right, guys, let's get to the record thing. I'm not big in individual records. You know that, Tomo. Sean, I don't think you are either. But Saquon, 267 yards away. The terrible team his first 6 years. You want to win the East, which they can do Sunday. You want to be the 1 seed, which they probably won't be. Do you play people? Do you not? Depending on what happens this week. Tomo, 267 yards away. Very doable. Probably won't play the last week. Both of you guys, how important is a record to you, and should the Eagles play it safe or go all out for this record?
Well, he's only going to play in one game. I can't imagine he's going to play against the Giants.
Me either.
You got to believe that they'll, assuming they beat Dallas this week, there's no purpose to that game. They're going to be the number 2 seed. And so why would you play him or any other significant player? Which means he'd have to get 267 this week, and you'd be like running him ragged. I don't think he cares about it at this point. It's not on my mind. I don't think it's heavy on Saquon Barkley's mind.
We saw last week. I'm sure you guys will watch this. Gastineau meeting Brett Favre at that convention about that meaningless record where Favre took the dive. Michael Strahan basically gave him a record. And How important are individual records to you, Sean, and what would you do in this case?
Well, I think when you're young, get into the league, we all want to be noticed, and, if you can do something like that, it's nice. But certainly as you get older, you understand they're not as significant, and the whole idea is if it can be done in the form of it helping the team and not hurting the team or yourself, then it's okay. But as Paul said, Saquon understand what the deal is. I think he let everybody know how he feels when earlier in the year it was on tape of Nick going up to him at the Giant game saying, look, you only need 15 more yards. He said, hey, let the young guys eat.
Yep.
Yeah. And
that
sure
right there just shows you.
He gets it.
And so he not only gets it, but he's also smart enough to realize he's got 314 carries right now. It's a career high.
And receptions.
2 more games. If he carried the ball, like, say, 55, 60 times in these next 2 games, I mean, he's in a zone where it's not a good place to be as far as, the toll it takes on his body, not just this season heading into the playoffs, but going forward. So I think he's smart enough to realize that's more important than anything.
But we had in this game a little plot twist. Vic Fangio's defense obviously wasn't very good. We'll talk about that in a little while, but Saquon Barkley was not just used as a running back, but as a quarterback. And the Wildcat on 3rd and goal from the 5-yard line didn't really work. Obviously, again, Sean, the narrative, he throws a touchdown pass there, a million different things are going to be said, but it didn't work. Were you surprised at that, Domo? Did they get a little too tricky in that case?
Yeah, I thought, I like Kellen Moore. He's been a great play caller this season. That one made no sense to me, and I'm not sure. There was basically one option for him. It was Devontae Smith in the end zone. He was covered. He would have had to throw that ball perfectly to get it to him. It didn't make any sense.
All right, Sean, another problem with the Eagles yesterday, their tight end, Grant Calcaterra, with Goddard out, didn't get a target, didn't block well. Their 3rd wide receiver, Dotson and Wilson, were in the Federal Witness Protection Program as long as we were down in Washington. Got to include these guys in. Now, whether that's Pickett's fault or the receivers, not looking, not familiar, whatever it was, but they got to include those guys, don't they?
Well, yes, and I'm sure there were times where they had him included, but they probably were covered or the quarterback was under duress and had to go a different direction. I mean, there's no question that everybody on your offense, especially the guys that catch the ball, have to be involved. And yesterday it was just a case that, that didn't happen. I mean, how many times, especially at the tight end position for the Eagles in the last 15, 20 years, have they not been any kind of an offensive threat like yesterday? Very seldom. Yeah. But, again, moving forward, let's see what happens with Dallas. It's a pretty good team coming in here. Even though they're 7-8, they're a pretty good football team, and, it'd be great for them to wrap up the division Sunday.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about Dallas on the other side of the break, but penalties, guys, the discipline, the lack of fundamentals, the sloppiness. Were the penalties, Sean, is that dependent on the refs? Are you just too aggressive sometimes? How much of a team, when they get a lot of penalties, was the refs going whistle happy? How much do you think is the team not paying attention to detail? Where does that fall?
Well, most of the time the calls they make are legit. Some can be very touchy, and, as a player you got to know that. But I think it comes down to each game is different, guys know they're going to throw the flag, and sometimes they'll try and push the envelope. But there's no question that's a hidden yardage thing that many times can make a difference in a game that no one will realize, and it's so critical not to be heavily penalized.
The only 2 penalties I had a problem with were the 2 the 2 roughing calls. One on Milton Williams early on, and another one on Jalen Carter. Other than that, I was fine with the job that the Zebras did on Sunday. We were talking earlier about the kickoff coverage. They changed the rule this year on the setup on kickoffs.
Completely,
but, yeah. Sidney Brown getting called for illegal motion on that kickoff, which gave them another 5 yards on the game-winning touchdown, was just. It was a legitimate call. I just don't know how you can jump off that badly in a situation like that.
It's true, and the attention to detail was where the Eagles didn't really come up big. When we come back from the break, the accountability was good, though. Certain Eagles stood in the locker room, and when asked about what he did, said, the game's on me, I blew it. Because losing is about, you're going to lose in life. It's a question of how you handle it, how you go forward. Did that Nick Sirianni handle the drama a couple weeks ago great? Will he handle it this week? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about this Eagle and all the others when we come back. Come on down, say hi to Sean, Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Guy, from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. And we'll be back in a second. Stay with us.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
At Independence Blue Cross, we take care of the people who take care of you. Everyday heroes like firefighters, police officers, teachers, farmers, and healthcare workers. Doctors and hospitals across the region have IBX, and they know what it means to have reliable access to care. So whether you're saving lives or just trying to live a healthier life, count on IBX, the region's #1 health insurer for 85 years. Learn more at IBX.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
With over 7,200 square feet of 200 brewers in stock at all times, Pat Dion Beverages now features 5 different flavors of their favorite slushy cocktails. You can also purchase all your wine, liquor, and other fine spirits right next door. Visit us on Facebook or online at patdionbeverages.com for upcoming events and samples from your favorite brewery or local food vendor.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
All right, back at the Great American Pub in Conshohocken, the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff. We appreciate the work of Corinne and all the waitresses and servers here who do a great time. We obviously want to wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. We'll be back here on the 30th, but a Happy New Year and many, many more to all. We'll have Mike Mayock here next week. Sean Landeta is here this week. And Devontae Smith stood up in his locker and answered every question, said it was his fault. It wasn't his fault they lost, but obviously you understand the big play in the game. Sean, how important was accountability? You had situations in your career where things didn't go right and you were asked about them. Everybody does. How important is accountability?
No, it's very important. But the problem is, if you're a player, that if you answer it once or twice, that's not enough. They will ask you 25 times. It's almost like subconsciously they're going to beat you up politely by making you have to rehash it again and again and again.
But there's waves and waves of media.
Yeah, but that's a good answer for you. Okay? But and again, he says, it's on me. And like I said before, you just said earlier, it's not his fault he lost the game. Unfortunately, you can say, yes, it is his fault he lost the game. There's 50 other things that could have happened, but that one play right there changes the whole game. And I know that's not fair, and he's a terrific player, but that's what I had said earlier. They'll always say, well, it wasn't that one thing. Yes, it was that one thing. Well, what do you think? Do you agree with that or no?
Hey,
if Barkley catches that ball in Atlanta, the game's over.
There are other games also where the Eagles made a big play to avoid losing.
Right.
That happens in this world. Damo, your thoughts on it? You've been in a million locker rooms, obviously more than I have. What do you think?
On
the whole idea of the accountability and what Sean said about the waves and waves?
I've always admired players that will stand there and who know the media wants to talk to them about something and it's not positive, but they'll be there. I can go down the list of guys, including Sean, who would be there and do that. But there are some guys that won't. I mean, to Devontae Smith's credit, to stand there yesterday and face the media was admirable.
CJ had a kind of half-hearted apology today.
He was nowhere to be found yesterday from everything I've been able to understand. And today he says, I might have gotten a little out of hand, but geez, to call that for trash talking, well.
Listen, if you got one personal foul, you know you got to be on double secret probation.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't say anything.
Right.
You say something, you put it in the ref's hands, you get kicked out. That's on you. Period. Wouldn't you do that, Sean?
Well,
so your parents told you something.
No,
Don't say another word.
No, you're right. And here's the problem too: is that all the guys on that other team, they know you got one strike, so they are going to try to provoke you any when they can, very subtly, and they'd never admit it, because he got thrown out because he got hit. He didn't hit somebody, and then from what he said, but you have to be smarter than that.
It just amazes me how many guys can't walk away. How many guys need to do that? And he's one of them. I mean, it fuels him.
Is Jalen one of them too?
I understand.
Jalen Carter? He's got to get mature.
He's getting better. I watched him yesterday. He was calming people down sometimes. He didn't go crazy after getting to the roughing call, which probably shouldn't have been called on him. So I think he's grown up a little bit. CJ, it's not a matter of maturity. It's a matter of personality with him. Like I said, some guys use that as fuel, and and that's okay. But you got to know when you still got to know when to walk away in a situation like that.
All right. One thing we don't normally get into, guys, is the broadcast crew. Joe Davis and Greg Olson did this one. Greg Olson's been pretty universally praised for his work. Joe Davis, a play-by-play guy for the Dodgers. Works with Fox and baseball as well. They kept talking about how amazing it is with this turnover differential that the Commanders were in the game. Like, did they realize Jalen Hurts got hurt? It was almost to the point, and I'm not one of these that worries about homers and fans, but it's almost like they didn't realize Jalen Hurts was hurt, and that the turnovers were the only element of this game that was pushing anything. I thought it was absolutely absurd. You guys?
Well, I think they knew he was hurt, but, they just wanted to talk about kind of the obvious thing here and something that everyone knows, and but you look at everything in depth. You have a you can look ahead much more than a lot of other people, and might have been nice if while they were discussing that they could have thrown in there real quick. Now remember, Jalen Hurts has been out of the game for 3 quarters.
But they did acknowledge that.
Not much.
Well, they didn't dwell on it, but I mean, Greg pointed out, what the defense was doing differently against Pickett, going to a single safety and packing the box. I watched the game and did not feel the same way people felt about that.
I actually did, and I'm not like that very often, but I thought Joe Davis and Greg Olson went so far to the point they obviously knew the quarterback was hurt, whether he plays next week or whatever.
But this is 4 teams in the last 5 years have managed to overcome 5 turnovers.
True, but I mean, it's not just the 5 turnovers, it's the +4 margin and the points off turnovers.
Kenny Pickett is a first-round pick with 24 starts in the last 2 years. I mean, we're not talking about chopped liver that went in there for Jalen.
See, to me it is tough. I'm not a Kenny Pickett fan at all. Bad first-round pick,
I'm not
bad
either,
starter in Pittsburgh. He played okay yesterday.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
He did play okay, and in Pittsburgh, he had some good wins up there. He did pretty good,
I still thought it was an impressive feat to overcome 5 turnovers.
Oh, there's no question.
No matter who the quarterback is.
All right, Sean, here's a question for you. You played for forever in the NFL. You played with the Stars, won a championship here in Philadelphia. And then you played with a lot of great players in the NFL, with the Giants, with the Rams, with the Buccaneers, Hall of Famers everywhere, obviously with the Eagles. Who is the greatest player that Sean Landeta ever had as a teammate?
That's kind of tough question. Most people would expect me to say Lawrence Taylor right away, and certainly you could not argue that, but I also played with Reggie White, who I think in many ways was just as great. He actually played longer. Guy I think was the NFC Defensive Player of the Year when he was 35, 36 years old. Probably those two were the greatest. Many others I did play with you. The team I was with in second time around with the Rams, we had 5 Hall of Famers on offense. 5. And those guys were so good I can't even tell you. But there's been so many great players I played with through the years, and I was really lucky.
You also played with Sam Mills in the USFL.
Sam Mills, we talked about it before. I mean, Sam Mills went on to be a great player in this league, the NFL, but it's not fair. But if Sam Mills was 6'5" and looked the part, you would be talking about him as one of the greatest linebackers of all time. But because he was 5'9", and he didn't play in a major media market, people just think, oh, he was pretty good, and he was beyond pretty good. He was amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Sam Mills, of those 5 offensive players, you played with Kurt Warner. I mean, stocking shelves to Hall of Fame. We all see that progression, but how did he handle that internally? Did he think he was that good? Obviously, you got to have confidence to play sports to begin with. But was he, in his mind, a Hall of Famer that was ignored by people? I don't know how much you looked at that situation, but Marshall Faulk, pedigree, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, pedigree. What about Kurt Warner?
Yeah, Kurt was a great teammate, and he was a terrific player, and it took a while. You know, most people don't realize back in 1994, he was in training camp with the Packers. And he just hung in there. He kept getting better. He played in the World League. And it's still, to me, the most amazing feat that a guy comes in as an unknown starter 5 years after getting signed in the NFL and proceeds to have the greatest year of any quarterback in the history of the game.
Of a team that was expected to be a great team, and then their quarterback goes down in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, Dick Vermeil was at I can still remember him being at the podium say, we're going to get behind Kurt Warner, we're going to rally behind him.
We're going to win with this guy.
You know, that's just what he said. But the numbers he put up that year were so spectacular from a guy that no one had ever heard of and no one should have heard of. It was just remarkable.
And Dick will be the first to admit, you know, I asked him, did you really believe what you said when you said we're going to win with this guy? And he said, what choice did I have? I mean, I believed in him because he's on our team. He said, but I didn't know. You know, you don't know until the guy's out there. And when he was out there.
And by the way, Dick just had back surgery. He's supposed to be here next month. Let's hope he recovers and is able to be here next month. A lot of Eagles fans, guys, got driven crazy by Josh Harris, the Sixers owner and the Commanders owner, on the field at the end of the game. Happy. What else is he going to be? Is this a non-story, or is there something to it, guys?
I just think it's something to fill some time. I mean, of course he's going to be thrilled. His team won an NFL game, and they're going to the playoffs. And certainly,
well, they didn't clinch it yet.
Right, but they're probably going to go.
Yep.
So he loves to correct me, Mr. Paul.
Well,
no, you're right. But anyway, he loves Philadelphia, and he loves the Eagles and the Sixers and their support. So. Anyone that gets on him for celebrating for his team's win, he was just celebrating that. I don't think he had – he would probably tell you, I wish it wasn't against the Eagles, because I feel he loves everything about the fans here and the way they support his team.
He owns Philly, New York, and Washington.
Yeah, he owns 3 different teams in 3 different sports. You know, I think on the day on Sunday he was a Redskins God. He was a Washington Commanders owner. That's all that's what he was celebrating. I don't think he was thinking about, that he also happened to coach the basketball, that owns the basketball team in Philadelphia, or when he's watching a Devils game, does he, I think it's a non-story.
All right. To me, it's a non-story as well. To a lot of people in Philadelphia, it's not, but we're always looking for something to dig our teeth into. The passion of the fans is unbelievable. This week the Cowboys come in. The game, by the way, is flexed. It was supposed to be at 4:25 on Sunday. It's now 1 o'clock on Sunday in the NFL's infinite playing of musical chairs. That's where that will stand. And we'll be back in a second. We'll talk about Sam Darnold, things going around the NFL. Michael Penix started yesterday. Someone says he's going to be the best quarterback in this draft. You're looking at him. We'll talk about that and much, much more when the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff continues. Final segment, Mr. Landeta and Mr. Domowitch. Join us after this.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
At Independence Blue Cross, we take care of the people who take care of you. Everyday heroes like firefighters, police officers, teachers, farmers, and healthcare workers. Doctors and hospitals across the region have IBX, and they know what it means to have reliable access to care. So whether you're saving lives or just trying to live a healthier life, count on IBX, the region's #1 health insurer for 85 years. Learn more at IBX.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. And here's the pitch. BCWSA water and sewer customers, you have a new and improved option to pay your bill that's convenient, reliable, and secure. Powered by Invoice Cloud, you can pay your bill 24/7 online, pay by text or phone, or sign up for AutoPay to avoid fees for late or missed payments. Visit bcwsa.net to sign up or for more info. That's bcwsa.net. BCWSA, proven.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
All righty, final segment from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. We're here with Sean Landeta. Thanks to Independence Blue Cross for sponsoring this show in the Great American Pub, for hosting us. And Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, happy New Year, happy everything to all of you. Mr. Domowitch, you have something to promo.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, since we have Sean on, that Sean played 3 years for the USFL's Philadelphia Stars.
Yep.
Next month, the Philadelphia Sports Writers Association is honoring the 84 USFL champions, the Stars, on their 40th anniversary. So that's going to be over at the Cherry Hill
Hyatt,
yeah, or
Changes
whatever.
every
It's
3 weeks.
not a Hyatt now, but it's January 16th. So
Yep.
if people want to get tickets for it, they can. The Doubletree in Cherry Hill on Route 70. Right.
All right, Sean, looking around the NFL, guys, Michael Penix yesterday came in for Kirk Cousins, who was very gracious. He's going to be cut at the end of the year. Falcons open up a can on the Giants, who, I hate to say it with Sean here, but to say they're a dumpster fire is an insult to dumpster fires. Penix, I think, is going to be really, really good. Played pretty well yesterday, first start. Damo, your first thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you think he's the best quarterback in the draft.
We got Daniels, we got Nix. I like Penix the best last year. Said he was going to go high. He did.
Yeah.
Let's see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, this draft looks like right now that it's turned out a lot of good quarterbacks. I mean, it's hard to argue that Jaden Daniels might be the best of the best.
Never liked Caleb Williams, and he's showing that. That's
right, but you know what? I think he's going to be okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
Sean, what do you think about Penix and the quarterbacks in the draft?
Well, certainly, I thought he did well yesterday for his first start. Not often does a rookie quarterback win his first start. I made me remember back to 1999 when Donovan had his first start against Washington, and when he won, I remember they talked about how rare that is.
Yeah.
And I thought he played pretty well. Now, as you said, he played against a team that is struggling mightily, to say the least, on defense, but he did go out and play well, and let's see how he does. Statistically, half the first-round quarterbacks through the years will have a career that you say doesn't work out or equal to where they're picked. I think right now, too, the guy in Denver and Washington have proven they can do it. Chicago's still a question mark, and let's see what happens in Atlanta. It certainly would be great for them if he turns into that guy.
You said he won his first game Donovan did against Washington. Damo, the Eagles lost the first game of the year against Washington after beating them earlier. Probably their most likely playoff opponent. We've all heard the stupid cliche, it's hard to beat teams 3 times. No, it's not if you look at the results. Your thoughts on the potential playoff matchup?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it's looking right now. And that, what happened yesterday wouldn't concern me as far as a rematch. They'd have a healthy Jalen Hurts, which I think changes the entire equation offensively. And defensively, in a rematch, Vic Fangio's he's going to find a way to strategize against Jaden Daniels better than yesterday when things didn't work out so well because of the people that were hurt and out of the game because of
Was it more credit to Daniels or the Eagles' defense just had a bad day? 36 points. We can talk about a million different things. Well, a lot of long drives. What was more about it? Eagles bad, Commanders good?
I mean, I thought the Eagles' defense was not as sharp yesterday. Josh Sweat missed half the game with an ankle injury, and that hurt because edge rusher is a position of concern right now as far as depth is concerned. Then they lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson. A lot of missed tackles yesterday. Their second half, you saw Daniels start to get the ball out a lot quicker.
Yep.
And that kind of eliminated the pressure he was facing. And they didn't do a very good job against him when he ran the ball. I mean, that, like I mentioned earlier, that 4th and 11, 30-yard run, that was a killer. So those are things that I think you'll see them adjust to in a rematch if they play them again in January.
All right, as we head toward the playoffs, Cowboys, such a shame, and the 49ers eliminated. Chiefs are 14-1.
I don't think he meant that.
I don't think so either.
Not really. Vikings are flying under the radar at 13-2 with Kevin O'Connell. They could very easily get the number 1 seed. They beat Detroit. Eagles waited the number 1 seed to get into a tie with Minnesota. The 93rd tiebreaker is most guys on the team named Luke, I think, and the Eagles win that one somehow. Sean, Coach of the Year in the NFL is tough. Is it a team that somebody took from mediocrity to being real good like Kevin O'Connell? Someone's supposed to win one game that wins 6 or 7? We got the coaching carousel that we talk about all the time. Coach of the Year. Got a few guys up for that, too. Who's going to win that? Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, Nick Sirianni? Who?
Well, it's tough. All those things you said, I think, come into it. I mean, sometimes, not often, but a team that went 2-15, if they go 9-8 the next year and get in, you can make a case that what that guy did was more than a guy who had a team that was 15-2. But I think if Minnesota ends up running the table here, I think he'd be the favorite. Here's a guy that training camp started for the most part. They were going to start their rookie quarterback who got injured. And when the season started with Darnold, it was like, well, we'll just see. Well,
Is Darnold Kurt Warner?
So far, I mean, he hasn't had anywhere near the kind of year Warner had. But in the same thing that, yes, a bad guy who wasn't supposed to start has come in and, led them to this amazing record.
We did not mention a guy whose team has the best record in the NFL. Andy Reid.
Yep.
And that's a perfect example again. I mean, it's almost like a lot of people wouldn't vote for Andy just because of the players he has, but should that be held against him?
Yeah.
What if he ends up going 15-1 and they win the Super Bowl again?
And they don't win 60-0 every week, but it's tough to win by one. He's got the NFL record. He won like 912 one-score games in a row. Yeah. That's not easy.
No.
He's done an amazing job. I mean, what's your general, when you vote for something like that or think about it, is it the guy who took the little engine that could to mediocrity, the guy who took the pretty good car to the Indy 500? What do you look at?
It's often the little engine that could team, or a team out of nowhere, or a new coach that's turned around a program real quick. That's why I think Kevin O'Connell's got a shot. O'Connell would right now probably be where my money is, or maybe Dan Campbell. I don't know.
2 years ago, the guy that got it, I think deserved it, but I think the guy that should have gotten it was Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
I think Jacksonville might have been like 2-6 or 2-7. They ended up getting to the playoffs and winning a playoff game. I mean, Brian Daboll got it, and he had a good year there.
Yeah.
But Doug really could have been the coach of the year there, explaining what you did, Paul, of taking a team that was, in such a terrible position and putting them in the playoffs.
And now, unfortunately, he'll probably get fired.
Probably will. Right?
It's how fast the NFL moves, not for long.
Right.
So an interesting situation that you're in, playing with the Giants and the Eagles, the two marquee teams of your career in most people's minds. Watching this Hard Knocks and seeing the owner of the Giants, who was the owner of the Giants partially when you were there, John Mara, not being able to get sleep and leaving Saquon Barkley, who probably not going to win the MVP now, could win will win the rushing title, could get the record. But seeing Saquon come here and do what he's doing, how much harm has caused the Giants, how happy the Eagles are, the glee, where do you sit in this whole thing?
Well, obviously, I really think that Saquon would have wanted to stay with the Giants if they would have signed him to a contract and, gave him a few extra million a year. And obviously it's very clear that the owner wanted him there, but they felt because of the injuries he's had and the position and his years in, and they had a number they were going to pay a running back. And It's just a perfect storm of it couldn't have gone any better for the Eagles, and at the same time any worse for the Giants. And it's just a bad luck situation for them. It's beyond awful, and for the Eagles it's been amazing.
Tom, 100 years from now, when we're talking about long ago, will this year be remembered as the year Saquon jumped ship to the right team? I mean, this year the Eagles will win the Super Bowl, not win the Super Bowl, whatever, but how often does a guy jump like that from a division rival and have the year he's had?
Remembered by who? The Giants fans? Yes. Eagles fans? No. 100 years from now, everything will depend on whether they win a Super Bowl or not this year.
No, absolutely. If they win the Super Bowl, let's say he goes for 150. Let's say he gets 2,000 yards. They rest him. They end up winning the Super Bowl this year with him. Then they will talk about it.
Yeah. All right, Sean, you're a guy played 25 years. You got a jillion stories.
That's a quarter of a century.
That's a quarter of a century.
No, I can't. It's like, when did I do that? Really?
Saquon's a hell of a player, but there's a guy more famous. I could go 20 of these stories. I don't know if you ever told this one on the air. Maybe you have. Pele's a little more famous than Saquon Barkley. Just passed away last year. Tell us about the flight to Brazil and what happened with Pele.
Yeah, I was flying down there. Might have been 1989, 1990, with a buddy of mine who was a big rock and roll star. And we were in first class, and I originally wasn't going to go, but he called me up and said, "Hey, I have a couple extra tickets. Would you like to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, you sure?" And he said, "Well, how much does the ticket cost?" He goes, "Well, I have an extra one, but if you want to pay for it, it's only $8,000. And I was like, "Geez."
He was living on a prayer, right?
Yes, he was living on a prayer.
Yep.
But anyway, we're on the plane in first class, and get up, stretch your legs. 15-hour flight. And I walked up, and I looked over to the left, and I saw a guy sitting there, and my mouth just dropped. I was like, "That's Pele." He was all by himself. I went back and told the guys. They were like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got to talk to this guy, but I don't want to bother him." And went up, "Hi, how are you? Hello, this." And
he speaks English.
Yeah, spoke English very well, and I told him my name. And when I said I played for the New York Giants, he goes, "Oh, New York Giants." And then right away I told him about the Cosmos and this. So right away we had something common to talk about. And it was a great 30, 40-minute conversation. I could have stayed there forever, but I didn't want to go. And, I shouldn't admit this because all of my friends were like, "How could you do that?" So we're talking. He goes, "Well, listen, next you ever come back, make sure you give me a call." And he writes his number. I wish we had phones back then. He writes it down on the napkin, and I'm like, "All right, this is great." Can you imagine me flying down here and spending time with him? Well, I end up misplacing the number, and never, my friends are like, "Don't tell anybody that," but that was such a thrill to talk to one of the greatest world superstars for about 40 minutes about soccer and this and that. And just, there's not a lot of times a lot of us are in the company of all-time greats.
And that rock and roll star he was with.
Yeah,
John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, he's not bad either. But and he's another great guy too. I mean,
and you're humble, Sean. I've known you forever. You're a very humble guy. I don't know what it is. I was telling Brienne, our producer before this, doctors seem to all know each other, no matter where they are, who they are. You know more people than anybody I've ever met in my life. How do you know everybody? I know you played in New York. You're a popular guy. But how in the world did you get to this many friends, this many people?
Well, it's a combination of playing as many years as I did and, playing a lot of the years in New York, and I spent a few years in L.A., and just the places you go, the things you do, you run into more of those kind of people, and that's just what it was. But looking back, it's really amazing, the people I met, the places I went, and, I could probably write a book just on that of, forget about me. Let's talk about all these people and places, and it's really been great.
Will you write it, Tomo?
Sean's such a shy guy, too.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to believe he met all these people.
Would you ghostwrite the book?
I'll ghostwrite it.
There we are.
Absolutely.
Coming out in your local stores, my career with whoever, we'll work on a title. But, guys, we go 2 or 3 more hours. Wish we could. Eagles Sunday, the game is flexed to 1 o'clock with the Cowboys can clinch the NFC East. Clinch the number 2 seed. We'll talk about it next Monday night with Mike Mayock. Had a great time tonight. Damo, thanks so much. Happy holidays to you.
You as well.
Thank you, buddy. Sean, happy holidays to you.
Yeah, thank you guys. So great to be here with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody that came out tonight. The Great American Pub. Brianna Neal produced this fine show. Gus Barber back at the station. For Paul Domowitch and Sean Landeta, I'm Paul Jolovitz. Wishing everybody a happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Have a great year. It'll be next year soon. Go Eagles against the Cowboys on Sunday. Enjoy, everybody. Take care.